Well, good morning, Keith Hayes from Mirador Television with Shout It Loud. I'm not only shout it loud about what we're doing at Mirador, that's not the whole point of it. It's just shout it loud to know that adversity is not going to overcome us. We in Lewis are digging our heels in, and I'm sure that around the world people are digging their heels in, and we will fight this through. But by the same token, every day there is a COVID news, and we do need to be able to bring the news to you. So we have to bring that up to date, and I'm sad that it is sad news. Just adjust the camera a little bit because I sway backwards and forwards, and my bum gets tired and sore in this chair if it's in there for too long. So forgive us if we do have to give you from time to time the serious stuff. And we'll try very hard then to bring a smile to your face. And we are trying very hard to do that. So let's just, unfortunately, yeah, we have to. Now, just a quick look at the COVID or COVID, whichever you pronounce, is potato and potato. There is a South African strain which is beginning to cause concern in some communities. So, if perchance your health authorities do tell you that the South African strain is wandering around, do be very careful and pay attention to what your health people say because it's virulent. Um, Matt Hancock has said that they're going to do door-to-door testing for this new strain or South African strain, and they're checking animal and food products in the Northern Ireland border, which is a nuisance. But there we go. And there is a Met Office warning for severe weather in parts of Northern England. Not, I'm happy to say, here, at least not at the moment. Although they were only about 15 minutes late. It said the warnings from the Weather Office last night said it'll start to rain about 2 o'clock in the morning. Well, I was awake at 2 o'clock in the morning. It didn't rain. 2:30, it teamed down, absolutely poured down. So we have to be very careful about ignoring advice. A couple of other things. Vietnam has confirmed that they've got another outbreak of a very contagious variant of the COVID strain. Whether it's going to come here or not, I mean, we're doing our very best to keep everything out. And I have to say, critical though I can be of various levels of government, then I think that we're doing not a bad job. Yes, like a lot of people, I'm depressed that I have to shuffle off at night and sit in my house on my own, distancing from everything and everyone, and watching absolutely a whole bunch of, yeah, let's say bollocks on television, including our own. And it's not a particularly good scene, and I can understand why people are depressed. And I read on social media some of the comments of people that are really, really quite distraught, and particularly those that have been forgotten by the government. Their businesses have gone down the hill. They can't pay their bills. All sorts of bad things are happening. And if there's one thing I would call upon the government to do is to tell some of these finance companies and banks, stop sending these reminders. The computer churns them out within 5 minutes. of you going over your overdraft or not having enough money in the. It is absolutely reprehensible. And I am making a list of these financial institutions. First of all, Mirador is going to call them to account once lockdown is over. We're small, but who knows who picks these things up? And secondly, I think that reform has to take place. If that's what the computers are going to do and the banks are washing their hands from it, it is when you're finding it hard to make ends meet, and you suddenly get something that says you have been doing £12 for being late. How late were you? By 2 minutes. I mean, it is quite ridiculous, and it is time that these people woke up and realised the harm that they're doing. And it's not me saying this. This is on social media. Lots of people are saying the same thing. Now, government has to listen to people. Sometimes they can ignore them. Sometimes they don't have to worry too much because it's only an individual like me getting on the backs of everybody once in a while. But generally speaking, this is upsetting, and particularly older people who don't know where to turn as it is. They can't commune with their families. They haven't got anybody to fall into the arms and sob. They have to put up with it on their own. And those are the sort of things that the banks and the finance companies should get together. Their PR is, we are there with you. What does that mean? We put arrows in our offices, in our branches, so that you can be 2 meters apart. And after that, they do sweet roll. Oh, there we go. There's a good rant. The headlines this morning really are less the stuff about COVID, less really dramatic than they were yesterday when the educationists. And incidentally, uni chiefs are saying to the government, why not stop interest on student loans? I mean, I think that's another interesting approach to things, because a lot of students are already burdened with debt. They can't do anything about it. Some unis are doing things online, but it's not the same. And they've loaded themselves with a great deal of debt. I mean, we're going to be a country that, on the one hand, we say we are worried about the mental health of people, and then putting burdens on them and supporting those who put burdens on them so that the mental health issue becomes more serious and not less. I mean, I've always thought the government is crazy. Was it Mr. Bumble or somebody in one of Dickens' novels who said, the law, sir, is an ass? Well, government is an ass. Always has been. But now we need you. We need government for support. We need you to understand what's going on instead of sitting in your ivory tower and basically taking decisions on what was, not what is, and most certainly not what is likely to be. You get your comeuppance if you're not careful. There we are. That's a good story. Good start to the morning breakfast. Right. Let's just take a look at one or two little things. First of all, we'd very much like to suggest to you that you know that there is a lot of stuff that in April, when lockdown ends, well, it starts to ease and we can go back to the shops. There are two things that are happening. First of all, the high street is being devastated with people like Debenhams and so on being closed, the chain stores being closed and going online. Another blow to the high street, but the high street can come back by making us again a nation of shopkeepers, and that we actually go out and we talk to people in the shops. And I think that we miss the pubs, not because we all want to drink every day, but because we can't have a chat. And if the high street is devastated, we won't be able to have a chat there either. So what we at Mirador would like to do is to say, look, why not? Okay, I mean, we're giving this away. We're giving advertising away virtually. What we'd like to say is, why don't you prepare for it now so that people know what you're going to offer? Now, you can't get any cheaper than that. 10 seconds worth for a tenner. And actually, because we don't have to be quite as severe as people on regular television, is sometimes you get 12 or 15 seconds for the same price. But we are getting to people. We are growing. More and more people are finding out about us. So this is a great opportunity for you to let people know. Yes, we're going to be there, ready for you when lockdown ends. And there are a couple of people who have been very supportive of us, and they already have taken their tenner's worth. And here are some of them.
My name's Yad and welcome to my shop, Bell & Co. We specialise in mid-century furniture, 50s, 60s and 70s mainly. One of our main ethoses here is very much encouraging people to look at older pieces of furniture rather than buying new or buying flat pack. We're very much environmentally based in trying to encourage people to reuse and reimagine objects, and so we spend a lot of time restoring pieces, reupholstering pieces and bring them back to life generally. They're just fantastic to look at and they're just beautiful items at really, really affordable prices.
Hi, I'm Elisa from Catherine Tales, and we've been open here for about 2.5 years. We specialise in focaccia genovese, which is this focaccia, like that. And my mum and I went to Italy, to Genova, to learn to make focaccia, which is an ancient art. Then we do little salad pots, sauces, fresh pasta, stuff to take home and cook. We try to get locally to support other local businesses. We have a few cocktails in bottles, which is why we're called Catcher and Tales. We're open 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday, to come by and see us anytime.
My name's Yad and welcome to my shop, Bell & Co. We specialise in mid-century furniture, 50s, 60s and 70s mainly. One of our main ethoses here is very much encouraging people to look at older pieces of furniture rather than buying new or buying flat pack. We're very much environmentally based in trying to encourage people to reuse and reimagine objects, and so we spend a lot of time restoring pieces, reupholstering pieces and bring them back to life generally. They're just fantastic to look at and they're just beautiful items at really, really affordable prices.
It's very irritating that you get just a little flash of me in between each of those commercials, isn't it? And I don't quite know why. I'm not terribly technical, and I shall speak to the techies and say, why does that happen? And undoubtedly they say, well, Keith, if you push this or push that, and I won't understand a word they say, but they will point me in the right direction so that stops. I can get really fed up with seeing that, let alone asking you to. We're going to try and lighten the mood in this morning spot. As I say, we'll bring the headlines to you, the news headlines. But one of the things that we want to do is to go and do live interviews. And we'll do a live interview with you, if you wish. Get in touch with us. I think Mirador Talker at mail.com. Mirador Talker at mail.com. And if you let us know that you'd like to come on, we'll arrange it. It's very simple. You sit at home with your phone or your computer or whatever, We click a couple of buttons, you get something to click on, and here you are with us. And we would be delighted to have you come on and give us your points of view. We did a 10-day trial to see what turned you on and what didn't turn you on, and that's why we now start at 7:30 rather than 7 o'clock. But all in all, we're motoring along and trying to get things right. We don't ever want to be uptight in this hour. Want to be as casual as we possibly can. And we've got slotted in here an interview with somebody local. And we've got plenty of people standing by. But one of the things that I remembered from my younger days was I keep on wanting to say that it was Mort Saul, but I don't think it was. I think it was Bob Newhart, two American comedians who did imaginary telephone calls with people. And it just occurred to me that one of the things that it's a bit of fun to sort of say, hello, is that number 10? Can I speak to Boris? Yes, he is. He's up. Oh, that's good. Yes. And would you ask him if he could possibly stop eating his porridge and just have a word? You will. Well, that's very good. Yes, it's Keith Hayes from Mirador Television in Lewes, the seat of freedom in the whole of the United Kingdom. Tom Paine country. Boris wouldn't know who Tom Paine was. Well, never mind. Just tell him Lewes. You won't know where Lewes is. He's well educated, isn't he? He went to eat. Well, he's. Dear. Thank you anyway. Yeah. But Boris, yeah, you don't mind if I call you Boris, do you? I mean, I'm one of your constituents. You actually call me Keith when you want to vote. You call me all sorts of other things when I get under your skin. But anyway, are you enjoying your porridge? Well, you're not really. No. Yes, it is a Scottish dish. You're quite right. Yeah, Nicola is probably eating porridge as well. Yeah, well, she would. She's a Scot. Well, if they actually claim independence, are you going to stop the import of porridge oats from Scotland? Well, you won't, no, because actually you secretly quite enjoy them. But I do see. I saw a story the other day, Boris, that haggis actually started in England, even though the Scots make a great fuss of it. And of course, Burns Night was last week, and then they have the haggis come in. I mean, you will never believe this, but the last time I had haggis was in Basel in Switzerland, and there's a gentleman there who headed up a whole bunch of Scottish bands and really loved Scotland. I had a French sound man and a German cameraman, and this chap said, we have got a very special meal for you today. And we went over to the Hilton Hotel, and the chef came in and they piped in haggis, tatties, neeps, yeah, and of course a shot of the finest Scotch that you could get, and it was very enjoyable. Except my German cameraman took one look at it and fled. The Frenchman tried one little bit of it and turned a sickly hue. So I was left to eat the whole lot. It was very good. It's very good. Anyway, yeah. Well, you don't want to claim haggis as being an English dish. You're going to leave that to Nicola. Well, that's very good. Well, Boris, this is only a short one this morning because this is just a sample of the sort of people that we want to talk to. Good of you to pick up the phone. And we're delighted that you seem to be at least giving some concession to Nicola by eating porridge oats, which came from Scotland. Toodle pip, Boris. Cheers. So that's the sort of silly nonsense we're going to try to get up to, except we'll be talking to real people. Now, we've got a few people, and I've just got very, very short promos of them, of some of the programs that we're doing on Mirador. And if you enjoy these sort of things, you can go to miradortelevision.com, or if you've got smart television, smartphones, you can get us on those. And Mirador Television streaming It has 4 hours worth of programs that you might enjoy. And here's one of them. Here is Jane with just a little sample of what she does.
Hi, I'm Jane at Mirador Television, and I love to recycle, upcycle, renovate, decorate, paint, and if I can find any old junk, I'm happy to turn it into something else. So in the next few months, I'm going to give you some ideas and show you what I'm up to at home, from turning tins into bins, making garden cushions, and my recent find was a Lloyd Loom ottoman, which has a wonky leg, but I'm going to try and renovate the leg and find some lovely fabrics. So lots going on. This week, I'm just going to show you a couple of old cot bumpers that I found hanging around the house from some time ago. And I thought, well, I don't want to waste the foam. I'll turn them into some seat cushions for the garden bench.
So why don't you join Jane on Mirador Television? What you're watching at the moment is Mirador Television Lewis. And we are coming to the conclusion that perhaps what we will do is we'll integrate Mirador Television Lewis into the mainstream, which goes all over the world. And I have the biggest laugh when people say, well, who listens to you? Who watches you? And I say, well, there's one gentleman in Patagonia who constantly says, well done, oh, jolly good show, and so on. So he doesn't quite put it that way, being Patagonian. But the fact is that for this sort of thing, the Americans, who we have to worry about a little bit on this program, on this channel, aren't awake at this hour of the morning. They're fast asleep in their cots. New York is 5 hours difference, and if you go to the West Coast, then that's 8 hours difference to us. So right now, it's still yesterday. No, it's not. Yes, it's still yesterday in places like British Columbia and California and so on. But other than that, there's nobody viewing across the pond. So we think that we might integrate everything so that it's seamless for you if you like a program to be able to just carry on and watch and see what Jane is up to and what others are up to. So that's one of the things that you really need to think about, and we need to think about, and see whether we can get you together with us, as it were, and do the thing that is good for you. So there we are. Let's take a look at what else is going on, because one of the things I think that who knows what's going to happen to the high street? Who knows what's going to happen to the high street? And Aldi, God bless them, we have an Aldi in Lewis. And Lewis, being a good middle class town, is when Aldi first started, people got very sniffy because it's a good third cheaper than any of the other, either of the other two supermarkets. But stack them high, sell them cheap, yeah, cheap goods, and so on and so forth. And then the reviews started to come in from the experts who knew what they were talking about. And they found that the Aldi wine was as good, if not better, and yet cheaper in price as those other supermarkets. Perhaps don't have the range that you would find in a specialist store. I don't think we have a specialist store left anymore. There is no vintner left in Lewis that I can think of. There was one. It was opposite to the White Hart Hotel, and it closed down. If you want a really decent bottle of wine, when the restaurants are open, you can get one at Hicks and Green. Is that their name? I call it Wild Bill Hickok's. You can get one at Wild Bill Hickok's, and you can get one at a Cote or Cote, however it's pronounced. So it is possible to get a decent bottle of wine without going to the supermarkets or without going to the vintners. And I do urge you to go. I'm looking at we get little bits and pieces of things popping up on my phone here, and one of the things that we don't have anymore is a wine shop. Now, having said that, Harvey's do a very good range in wines, but and I believe that Harvey's didn't start as a brewer. They didn't start as making beer, for which they're now famous, but they actually imported and sold and distributed a very decent sort of heavy red wine, almost a port. And I got that from watching a video that Miles Jenner, the chief brewer, did, and it popped up. I don't know if it's on their website or on YouTube or whatever. But they were vintners, and they still are. You can get a decent bottle of wine down at Harvey's, but as a specialist shop, as a wine only shop, I don't think that you can find one. And we're happy that at the moment what we do is we have Fergus Woods come on, and he will be returning very shortly. And he outlines some of the wines that he imports. And he goes to very strange places in the world and brings in wines that you would never get, but they are online. You can't go and visit Fergus in any store. So, although he's a useful service, a very good service, is still, if you want to wander down the high street and take a look at what the wine shop has, there ain't none. I'm sorry to say, you either go to the supermarket, go to Harvey's shop, or nothing at all. You can get wine at the place opposite the station, but I don't think even they, with the best will in the world, would say they're experts. So Aldi are offering all sorts of jobs to people who are going to lose their jobs on the high street because Debenhams is going, and a number of the other Top Shop and so on. They've all been bought, and they've been bought by an online giant. So they are unlikely to be there for much longer, selling goods on the high street, and that's going to leave the high street devastated. But I wonder whether we should investigate, and you can say I'm mad if you like, whether we should investigate our high street should become what Napoleon dismissively said, we are a nation of shopkeepers. Because when I came to Lewes around about 1990, there were 4 butchers. Now there are 2, one at either end of the town and none in the middle. There were 2 greengrocers. There was a fishmonger. There were all sorts of well, you could go and get a pound of butter in stores. And that's not so long ago. It's what, 21 years ago? No, 31 years ago. I always forget the 10. But they didn't disappear until towards the end of the 90s. And I'm told that was a deliberate strategy to encourage the big boys, to encourage the supermarkets to come in. Was to pressure the little guy to get out of the way. So there is a very decent butcher and a very decent fishmonger down on the riverside, but no more. But at one time, Cliff High Street had 3 or 4. There was one chap who you could watch on the old slab. You get on the old slab where they just lay the fish, and you could take a look and say, "I'll have that one, have that one." Don't suppose because of the various rules now you can do it. But I wonder whether we should actually start to look, and whether the high street traders are discussing that sort of thing. I don't know. I'm not a member of the high street traders. We are a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and undoubtedly to one of their meetings, this sort of thing will be discussed, because something's going to happen. Something are we just going to leave the high street to become charity shops and estate agents? Because much as those things are needed, they are hardly the heart and the throb of a vital community. We want to broadcast from the high street. We've looked at it and we've tried. Not too many were interested. Yeah. It would have been a bit of a flash in the pan. But the fact of the matter is, it is done in other parts of the world, and the radio and television people have become the lifeblood of smaller towns, because people can pop by and stick their head in and say, "Oi," Say hello to Auntie Jane. She's watching you this morning. And we will continue to try and fulfill that strategy if we possibly can. It does mean that other people have got to change their way of thinking, particularly those people who have shops and shop fronts which are standing empty, waiting for the very, very rich people to come and buy a lease. Well, those rich people are disappearing. Surely it is incumbent upon us to try and find some compromise and some strategy where the people who own these shops don't lose out. And why should they? They've invested in them. They've invested in the property and expect a return. But by the same token, they can be used instead of standing empty for community benefit. Well, we don't have people with imagination here, I'm afraid. But anyway, I'm on a rant, aren't I? And I don't mean to be. I really don't mean to be. Now, one of the things that we have got coming up is the return in a little while of one of our favourites.
Good morning, peeps. We're back in Hailsham after 3 weeks. I've had a few issues going on with health and various other stuff, but back to full strength again now. Gardens are looking good. As you can see, the rain is here to help things grow. So our little perennial garden in Hailsham that we've been working on for the last few months is now really coming together. We've got enormous hollyhocks growing. The alliums are all out, cicerantiums. It's an absolute blast of life now, and we're still not in the main growing season. So another few weeks, it will really come to life. So as you can remember, we planted courgettes and peas and sugar snaps in the outside bed. So the courgettes are now flowering, and the sugar snaps and the peas are doing remarkably well.
Well, there you are. It's Alex and his pal Joey. In fact, we know very well that it's Joey that runs the programme, and he just brings Alex along as a mouthpiece. So pal Joey and Alex will be back very soon. And terrific advice. He's a very up-and-coming young gardener. He's got a fantastic project that he's going to take us through, where he's got a piece of land, and the owner wants that land turned into an absolutely magnificent garden. It's going to take a year, and Alex is going to take us through it step by step. He just can't get started until lockdown ends, as indeed a lot of things can't get started until lockdown ends. We want to do an awful lot at Mirador. We can't get started until lockdown ends. So hopefully there will be all sorts of things starting, and Alex will take us through what is. I think that he will become the next great landscaper because his heart is in it. He knows his stuff, and he's a very, very hard worker, and actually an attractive bloke too. So I'm very pleased that he's part of Mirador. So there you've got Jane, and you've got Alex. And then this morning, except that yesterday I worked very late at night, and then I suddenly remembered I should have given him a call. We've got Paul Fowle, who ex-policeman but ex-banker. What a combination! And Paul is becoming a regular with us, and he pops up with us and has a little. We have a little chat to him, and he tries to point out what's happening as far as the economy is concerned. And though he is loath to make predictions where he can get his fingers burned, he does give us an indication of the sort of things that is going to take place. And he has confirmed what I've been saying, is that one of the big reforms is going to be, once we've stopped fighting the bug, is in the banking sector. Retail bankers can't expect to treat us the way that they are at the moment and get away with it. And that's one of the reforms that we think that will be coming. Will we lose the high street? Well, there's a good chance that we will, but we don't have to. And I'd like to just take a moment or two to go through media, because media has had to adapt over the years. When newspapers really started in a serious way in about 1880, 1890. And one of the first newspapers, in fact, it was the first newspaper, and the only one from that era that is still going, is the Financial Times. And believe it or not, the Financial Times was started just a spit and a throw from Lewis at Upper Dicker, a chap called Horatio Bottomley. Horatio Bottomley was a great patriot and made all sorts of efforts for both the Boer War and the First World War to raise funds and to get the patriots to go marching off. I don't know whether he did people any favors with that, but nonetheless, he ran a paper called John Bull, and it was the typical Englishman in his boots and his riding breeches and his waistcoat with the Union Jack on and his top hat, striding out and telling the rest of the world, "Hey, we're here. Pay attention." But anyway, what he was doing secretly was, and he had a very fine lifestyle. His mansion in Upper Dicker, and he had stables, and he actually had I think it was Cooksbridge Station. The original one was built by him so that people could come to his house, to his estate in Upper Dicker, to the parties that he threw. So he was a man of considerable force and intelligence, but he was using that intelligence by making a fortune running competitions in his newspapers and his magazines, and making sure that his employees were the winners, and they were pouring out all the prize money back into his magazines. But anyway, the Wall Street Journal, not the Wall Street Journal, the Financial Times, the FT, was started by Horatio Bottomley of Upper Dicker, and it is still in existence now, and it is the oldest, longest running newspaper, I think, in the world, but certainly in the UK. So there you are, the sort of thing that Paul Fowle will talk about, and the sort of things that where people say economy, don't understand the economy. He'll try to help you understand the economy, because the economy is, it's inflation. What's inflation? Well, yesterday I went to the supermarket and I bought a chocolate bar for £1, and today the same chocolate bar was £1.05. Simple enough, isn't it? But if it's actually the word inflation is put towards that sort of example, then you begin to understand what we're talking about. And Paul is a master of that, so he will be joining us. So lots of interesting things, I think, that we're trying to do. We also, at about this time, what time is it actually? It's 10 minutes past 8. Yeah, 10 minutes past 8, yeah. Well, one of the things that we're trying to do is to go overseas. And we have a huge network of people in all sorts of places around the world. And, often people say, yeah, well, I'm traveled. And it turns out that all they've been is to Benidorm for 2 weeks. And they secretly get a bit of a kick when they find out that all these places they've heard about in Southeast Asia, and remember there's a revolution going on, or a military takeover in Burma, for instance. Burma is now Myanmar. How many of you knew that? Well, a number of people will, but the fact of the matter is it took me a little while to come to grips with the fact that Burma is now Myanmar. So when people were talking about Myanmar, and rightly using the right term, I hadn't a clue what they were talking about for the longest while. So we want to interview people, or at least have a chat to those correspondents that we've got in other parts of the world. We'll do that about this time, so that we can take you out of your, well, I'm not sure that you'll be in an armchair at this hour of the morning, but take you out of the kitchen, or take you out of the dining room, or take you out of eventually taking the kids to school and seeing what some of these places are like and the people who are in them. It is said, and I can quite believe it, that there are many people in the United States who do not know that Canada is their northern neighbor. And Canada is actually bigger territorially than the United States. In terms of population, it's not, but it is territorially bigger than the United States, and people don't know about it. And it's not that we shouldn't blame people. We shouldn't say, ignorant people, they should go and find out. No, they shouldn't. It's incumbent upon people like us to try and lay before them exactly what's going on and what's what and who's who and where's where. because people lead very busy lives and can't always catch up with these things. And if we just can show a few minutes and have a chat to somebody who lives in various places, it gives a much better picture, and takes us out of our own looking up our, looking at our own navels, shall we say, and getting so hung up on Lewis that we forget what the rest of the world is like. So those are the sort of things that we hope that we can do. Yeah, let's. I was talking about the shops getting going, and so far there's no indication that the time scale for reopening the shops in April. I don't know whether Easter is in April this year. It would be rather nice if the shops were able to open at Easter. And in May, that the pubs and restaurants are back on track. It would be absolutely terrific, because in some ways, in the short time, we've actually forgotten what it's like to shop. Now, one of the big arguments that's raging is when people should go back to school, or when students should go back to university, and when children should go back to school. And I suppose really we all want to think that they can actually go and enjoy themselves at school. Enjoy themselves? Do kids enjoy themselves at school? Yes, of course they do. I mean, I can remember thinking, oh God, I got to get up and I got to go to school tomorrow. And then when I was at school, I didn't want to leave. It was that sort of experience, and I'm sure that that's true today. But yesterday's headline, which hasn't been followed up much today, is that there will be a lost generation. That the schooling will mean that we've got a whole generation who aren't properly educated and therefore can't face the rigors of the world. Now, I'm not sure that really that it isn't academia's plea. Don't misunderstand. Missing school and not being able to go to school is pretty serious stuff. Yes, it is. It's pretty serious stuff. And I'm not belittling it or downplaying it one little bit. But it is interesting that Tom Paine, who was a remarkable man, who persuaded the Americans to cast us off, to become independent. And he went to help the French do the same thing. And he was charged with a form of treason because he wanted to do away with the divine right of kings, which still persisted amongst royalty. He named the House of Commons. He named the United States. He invented a form of steam engine. He invented the smokeless candle. He invented the single-span bridge. And what qualifications did he have? What schooling did he have? None. He worked in his father's store as a young man before he became a customs officer. But he obviously taught himself, or somebody taught him to read and write, because he was, when the customs officers wanted to make representation that they were underpaid and overworked, he was at the center of putting together various manuscripts and order forms and so on and so forth, outlining their case. So in many ways, there is a man who had no formal education, who got on with it and became a world leader. And there are many more that do. Oh, there we go. A little morning sneeze, and it's nothing to do with COVID. But I'm just to demonstrate what I think is courage and determination, which can overcome the lack of education. There is a wonderful story. I always call it the Virgin of St. Paul's. I believe that the original story was based on a different church. But the Virgin of St. Paul's was a man in his mid-40s. He'd never been able to read or write. He was very happy in his job, very fastidious, and everybody loved him, until a new bishop came along and swept clean. He sacked everybody. And this man, the verger, was let go because he couldn't read and write. And devastated, he started to walk along the South Bank, and he thought, I'll have a fag. I'll have a cigarette. It'll calm my nerves. And he felt in his pocket, and he smoked the last one sometime before. So he thought, well, I'll head it and I'll buy a packet of cigarettes. And he walked and he walked and he walked, and he couldn't find anywhere to buy a cigarette. So he thought, well, I've got a little bit of redundancy money. If I can't find a cigarette shop, nobody else can. So he opened one. And then he was good enough at his work and fastidious enough in applying his energy. He opened a second one and a third one. And eventually he was amassing quite a fortune. And his bank manager looked at his bank account and said, I think those in the days when the bank manager you had a bank manager and then he talked to his customers, his clients. And he said, you've got a lot of money here. I think you should invest it. The ex-verger said, well, I'm quite happy for you to do whatever you want. Why don't you fix it up and so on and so forth? So the bank manager looked around and made a few investments and so on and so forth. And it came time for the verger to confirm what the bank manager had done. And he went into the bank manager's office, and the bank manager said, would you look at these documents, please, read them through and sign here, here, and here. And the verger said, I'm terribly sorry, I can neither read nor write. Oh my God, said the bank manager. What would you be if you could read and write? The verger of St. Paul's, said the man. Lovely story. Get stuck in. Yes. Maybe we're going to have a lost generation. But maybe also we've got the temperament and the desire and the determination to fight that through. You've got youngsters who will be creative, will find all sorts of different ways. And it's funny, but in the 2000s, because I was working on the continent and working on in countries that had just come out from under the mighty Soviet yoke, and in many other dictators like Ceausescu and Hoxha, that I saw that there was change on the way, but I never ever thought that change would hit us in the UK the way that it has with something like this. And I thought, we're all so set in our ways, and it's all working, and we're all prosperous, and so on. So I never thought, come the day where we would all have to start to look at things and be creative, and start to look at things in a different way and do different things to be able to even survive. And that day has come. And if in fact there is going to be a lost generation, there will be a lost generation, but they will only be measured by what we had before lockdown. And I don't think that necessarily that has to be. Entrepreneurial spirit, which the government says it champions and never does, but entrepreneurial spirit can hold sway. And let's hope that that lost generation will grab life, as I used to say, by the short hairs and get on with it. Oh, dearie me. What an opportunity for me to actually have a little rant and rave this morning. It's 21 minutes past the hour of 8 o'clock. We're broadcasting from Lewes in East Sussex. With this program, we're only broadcasting to the local area. But at the same time, our international channel is booming out to potentially billions of people throughout the world. There's almost nowhere in the world that you can be now where you can't get Mirador television. So this little chat with you is all about what we can do locally. And I'm very happy that we can do that. Let us see. I think one of the things that we should do is we should say, be prepared for lockup be prepared for when we are coming out of I just had a little message from Alex, and I wasn't able to read it properly. Alex Hoare, whom you just saw a moment ago. We are hoping that we can be different, that we are small, but that we can make an impact. And I was sort of diverted there. So what I was starting to say was, get ready for April. Let people know that you will be open. No matter how devastated the high street may be, let them know that you're there. So the news headlines this morning, and the 7 vice chancellors have called upon the government to cancel the interest rates that students are paying on their student loans. And there's been a bit of a scandal, I suppose, about student loans, because in some instances it's said that the amount of money that the students are able to borrow, it takes them 8 to 10 years to pay off. So they have this albatross around their neck as they get cracking. Since being an entrepreneur, you have the very good times and the very bad times. I know COVID, along me and another 3 million people, fell between every crack that the government could possibly find to make sure that we didn't get any assistance. It's very frightening. I'm tough as old boot, and I'm I'm no spring chicken either. But a young entrepreneur, encouraged by the government to be an entrepreneur, of 26 or 27, who's facing this sort of thing, and there are many who are in despair. If you read social media, are in despair. It's a really rough time, a really rough time, and our heart goes out to them. But by the same token, I think that student loans, yes, they should be eased, because young people need a breathing space. They don't need the weight of a very prosperous economic society on their shoulders for the first years when they're trying hard to make it good. I don't think we should just hand out money willy-nilly. I think a student should be able to get a loan on merit, not just because he wants to go to university, and that's a mistake that we made. But by the same token, lifting it, I'm with the vice chancellors. There's not much going on locally, by the way, that I can see. The other thing is that the Independent quoting somebody, and the world must value nature instead of profiting from it, and that's in the Independent. I unfortunately hit the wrong thing there, and it's another COVID story in the mail that I've got. But let's we'll try and get it back while we're doing something else. But COVID is still a problem, so do be careful. Do be wary as you go around your various duties during the day. I have to show this, I really do, because I think that in some ways, it just shows how out of kilter we are with real life.
Oh, you got me, Lottie.
Well, somebody organised a snowball fight. Commercials on commercial TV show snowball fights. Every last movie that is romantic, of which there are many on some of the more obscure channels, all show people having little snowball fights. Well, the poor two people who organised that 80 people are going to have a snowball fight, come on, let's snowball one another, have been found guilty of breaking COVID rules and have got a fine of £10,000 each. Oh dear, 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 dear. So that's the most expensive snowball fight they'll ever have. And I wonder whether this is a punishment to fit the crime. All right. They encourage people to, I assume, break lockdown rules. Well, if we locked up everybody who does that in the country, the jails would still be overflowing, or soon be overflowing. Yes, they needed their fingers burnt. But £10,000 each seems to me to be very disproportionate to do what we all enjoy doing the moment we get a bit of snow. We like to frolic in it. We're not a snow country. We here in Lewis, we haven't had any. Haven't had any for 2 or 3 years. And while the rest of the country has been suffering, we haven't had any to make us suffer. Pretty sad. That if it does come and we started to roll in it and frolic in it and threw the odd snowball down Ava, then it cost us 10 grand. Very sad indeed. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? There we go. But is that the way that we're getting out of kilter in our society? I got the thing back. Captain Tom Moore's family are with him in hospital. He's battling like crazy. Here's a 100-year-old, once again, a bit like some of us who are almost 100 years old, tough as old boot. Go get him, Tiger. Is this disease, or whatever we want to call it, it's not a disease, but this infection, is not going to get him without a fight. You know who I'm talking about? The man who was knighted at 100 because he walked and walked and walked and walked and got people to sponsor him for charity, and he raised millions for charity. And after all his good works, he came down 2 days ago with COVID, and he's in hospital, and his family are with him. Oh dear, dear, dear. The rest really is all about COVID. We can't get away from it. It is sad. We can't get away from it. And even the sport, that's not a great deal. Because the cricketers are down in India. We can keep an eye on that if you're interested in cricket. The Six Nations rugby starts this weekend. We are going to play Scotland, playing them at Twickenham. We've had a couple of frights from the Scots in the past, so I suppose that it's one of those things that we watch quite closely if you're a rugby fan. And there seems to be a full schedule of football matches going on, and they are trying hard to catch up, because it seems as if they're playing once every other day. Sometimes to empty stadiums, sometimes a very limited number of people. And a lot to do with, I think I call it VAR. It's the video review of whether somebody is offside or whether a goal was scored or whatever, and that's causing great controversy. But that's That's us. Let's just take a look at Alex and Joey, because soon they will be back giving us the benefit of their advice.
Good morning, peeps. We're back in Hailsham after 3 weeks. I've had a few issues going on with health and various other stuff, but back to full strength again now. Gardens are looking good. As you can see, the rain is here to help things grow. So our little perennial garden in Hailsham that we've been working on for the last few months is now really coming together. We've got enormous hollyhocks growing. The alliums are all out, cicerantiums. It's an absolute blast of life now, and we're still not in the main growing season. So another few weeks, it will really come to life. So as you can remember, we planted courgettes and peas and sugar snaps in the outside bed. So the courgettes are now flowering, and the sugar snaps and the peas are doing remarkably well.
Well, just while Alex was just telling you about the peas and the mange tout and the things that you can do in the garden that he'll help you with and give you advice, I was just looking very quickly through the business headlines. And there's one here that there's a lot of business that always seems remote. But Virgin Money has set aside £726 million for bad loans. And that seems to me to be the first sign of humanity that I've seen from any finance company. Now, because Virgin was owned by Branson, one never knows how much the bloke at the top has a say. Sometimes when you've sold out and you own some shares, you keep some shares, that we very much lose track of what's real, what affects us on a day-to-day basis. And actually, the banks and the credit card companies have really, they've lost the plot. I mean, they really have lost the plot. And until they actually get their act together, which they're not likely to because the computer hasn't told them to do it, we're still in for letters every day saying you were late by 2 minutes and here's your fine, and if you don't, we're going to take you to court and all the rest of it. I mean, how ridiculous. And then on the other hand, that's saying what wonderful organizations they are because they're with us. Well, here's one, Virgin Money, who is saying, we expect that we're going to lose loans. People have taken out loans with us, and we're going to lose some of it. I don't take that as being able to read that you can try to cheat these people. But at least there is a spark of humanity in Virgin Money, if this headline is to be believed. Hey, so there we are. That's a little bit of a look around the country, a little bit of a look around the region, Lewisham district, and we do have input from Claudine, who lives in Tunbridge Wells, from Jane, who lives in Hastings, and from one or two other people who live on the outskirts of Lewes, apart from those of us who live right in the heart of Lewes and can see it. Oh, and I'm looking out of the window right now, and it looks as if it's drizzling. Yeah, that fine dry weather has disappeared. It looks as if the drizzle, the rain is back. And I'm trying to look at the tree. The gusts of wind aren't that severe. But nonetheless, it's not the sort of day to go outside. Not that you can go outside anyway. We're all getting letters saying, stay in, don't go out, you'll kill people. Well, that's true, but you can't totally stay in. You can't totally isolate. Not everybody is fortunate enough to have somebody to go shopping for them or whatever. But just be very careful when you're out there. Very careful indeed. But if you are locked in, why not think of joining Jane when you actually are thinking, what on earth do I do?
Hi, Hi, I'm Jane at Mirador Television, and I love to recycle, upcycle, renovate, decorate, paint, and if I can find any old junk, I'm happy to turn it into something else. So in the next few months, I'm going to give you some ideas and show you what I'm up to at home, from turning tins into bins, making garden cushions, and my recent find was a Lloyd Loom ottoman, which has a wonky leg, but I'm going to try and renovate the leg and find some lovely fabrics. So lots going on. This week, I'm just going to show you a couple of old cot bumpers that I found hanging around the house from some time ago, and I thought, well, I don't want to waste the foam. I'll turn them into some seat cushions for the garden bench.
Now, do join Jane on Mirador Television. MiradorTelevision.com, or if you've got a smart TV, you can find Mirador Television on Apple, Amazon Fire, Roku, and so on. And you can find them on the phone if you go to the App Store. But Jane I was talking to her the other morning about her program, and she said, my family, we laugh a lot. And she said, I get joy out of doing a lot of these things. Well, we like to think that we're laugh a lot people. We see the glass half full. It's not going to get us down. And believe me, there are enough things that you wouldn't want just one of those things pre-lockdown, and it would have got us down. As it is, all sorts of things are pressuring in. And those people that are putting the pressure on are the people that keep on telling us how wonderful they are and how well they're looking after us and they're concerned. And which is, I'm sorry, is not true. But anyway, we'll fight it through. So do join Jane and do join Alex when he returns in a week or two. And for that matter, we hope that Fergus will be back with his wine show. And all in all, the whole thing is looking pretty damn good, as far as we're concerned, and the things that we're able to bring to you. Right. The other thing that we're able to bring to you is, first of all, this is, let's see, we're going to, is it April, in time for Easter? We should have this back. And here are some of the people who have been supportive through the time that everything has been locked down.
My name's Yad and welcome to my shop, Bell & Co. We specialise in mid-century furniture, 50s, 60s and 70s mainly. One of our main ethoses here is very much encouraging people to look at older pieces of furniture rather than buying new or buying flat pack. We're very much environmentally based in trying to encourage people to reuse and reimagine objects, and so we spend a lot of time restoring pieces, reupholstering pieces and bring them back to life generally. They're just fantastic to look at and they're just beautiful items at really, really affordable prices.
Lisa from Catching Tales, and we've been open here for about 2.5 years. We specialise in focaccia genovese, which is this focaccia, like that. And my mum and I went to Italy, to Genova, to learn to make focaccia, which is an ancient art. Then we do little salad pots, sauces, fresh pasta, stuff to take home and cook. We try to get locally to support other local businesses. We have a few cocktails in bottles, which is why we're called Catcher and Tales. We're open 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday. To come by and see us anytime.
Roundabout has been going for 35 years. We're a dress agency, so what we do is we sell on behalf of people. The customer gets 50% of the price and we take 50%. The online shop is roundaboutlewis.com. I try and update it, daily when things come in. We're open Tuesday to Saturday, 9:30 till 4:30. So if you're looking for gifts or a dress for yourself, why not visit?
It is very irritating to see me pop up like that. I'm beginning to think actually that it's the boss, she probably thinks that I sneak out in between commercials and have a drink or something. I mean, even I don't start drinking quite this early. And so it's a check to see whether I'm still there. Just a little flash. Oh, yes, he's still sitting there. Look, you can see the hat and the scarf. But I find it irritating, and I'm sure you do. I'm sorry about that. We'll try hard to fix it. But one of the things that we are hoping to do at this hour, there are two things which, in the history of morning television, and although you can see this at any time of the day because now of social media outlets and YouTube and so on and so forth, that it is still a morning program. We broadcast it live first thing in the morning, and then you can see it for the rest of the day. But the history of morning programs is fascinating, and there are two things which we have discovered is that one of the things that is very, very popular is having very peculiar interviews. And one of the most famous that stands out is where one host of a morning program similar to this one interviewed a penguin. So we've been trying hard to think is who should we interview? And it's I remember that in my early days in broadcasting, I worked with a famous name in Canada, a chap called Ted Reynolds. And Ted was a very laid-back character, very easy to work with, and a very, very good teacher in many ways. I learned an awful lot from him. But he related that in the days of radio where you didn't have videotape, audio tape, and so on and so forth. And he said the boxer had got a string of championship belts to his name, was a very interesting character, very lovely man. But once he got on the air, he froze. And every time that Ted asked a question, he would go, Ted would say, what does it feel like to be a really first-class champion, a boxing champion? And, do you get a great deal of joy out of it? The guy goes, this is live on radio. There's no pictures for people to even see him going like that. Can you imagine? Can you absolutely imagine what's been going on in terms of, in those days, people having to struggle to make sure that they could get through an interview like that? And I would imagine that the imaginative way in which the penguin was interviewed. So I've been trying hard to think is who can we interview that would really make it very difficult for us, and how would we handle it? I mean, I suppose I can interview the cat to start off with. But also, it's funny how these things trigger memories, because I also remember how we used to tease the people who worked for the EU when I was working abroad on various missions. The EU is known for its patronage. So quite often people in missions in far off places were the nephew or the son or the daughter of somebody rather than being able to do it. And they demonstrated their usefulness or lack of it by simply not achieving many things and then blaming everybody else for it. And we took a little ditty and called it the journalist's song. And whenever we had EU people in our hearing, we would sing this little song, which I think, I'm not absolutely sure whether it was Arthur Askey or who it was in the old days, one of the old stars who sang it. And it went, we're busy doing nothing, working the whole day through, trying to find lots of things not to do. We're busy going nowhere, isn't it just a crime? We'd like to be unhappy, but we never do have the time. And we would sing this in restaurants and duck our heads as if it wasn't us and leave these people with beetroot faces. We were very, very naughty. And this wasn't kids either. These were reasonably responsible adults who were tweaking the tails of the EU people. And it's got nothing to do with Brexit or whether we should be in the EU or not. But their system of making sure that they gave jobs to their sons and their daughters and their relatives is really a scandal, because perhaps their handling of the vaccine situation is very typical of it. Is there are people who they're because of who they know, not of what they know, and that really is quite awful. So that's the sort of thing that we got up to when we were working abroad. Naughty people. But then again, working abroad, even I was 15 years in Northern Ireland, and I wasn't always at the front line. I did a variety of things while I was there, but always in the information section. And you see some things and you hear some things and you get involved in some things which you prefer not to. So you do actually get a good take on life. It's the same as immediately post-war in Kosovo. People don't realize what happens. One day we were driving down to the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. I think it's just Fyrom, and we would go down there for R&R because they had no problems with electricity or water. Whereas in Kosovo, we had electricity 4 hours on, 4 hours off. Water, you never knew. You turn on the tap, and if something came out, you were lucky. And quite often the lights would go out and the water would go as you were halfway through shaving. and the thing is that the Americans had a compound in which they had everything there to make sure they got hot water and light all the time. So you would apologize and say, I'm sorry, I've come to this meeting bleeding because the water went off, the lights went off. They go, oh yeah, that's okay. We don't understand that. We've got our own compound with light and water and so on and so forth. And so you get used to working at hardships. And hardships are those things which make you a better and a wiser person, even though at the time you don't particularly like them. Can't think why I started to tell you that. And quite often, the stream of consciousness that we'll go through in the morning is quite remarkable, but I hope it makes you laugh, because that's what we're really setting out to do. We're setting out on Mirador to try and make you laugh. Here's a reminder that you can start to get ready for when we can go back to the shop. Well, now here is a little bit of news that some people will they won't understand, and other people will. The former Chancellor George Osborne is to become a full-time banker. And I'm talking about reform. I mean, Georgie Boy was really, he was always after Theresa May. He was always after any David Cameron and so on, because he'd been turfed out of cabinet for his pro-European views. Nothing wrong with having pro-European views, but he took it to the extreme because he then became editor of the Evening Standard. And the Evening Standard is a newspaper with a long, long splendid tradition. It started as a paid paper. Now it's free. It will be free, hopefully. Again, we'll start to commute or go back to London. But it became a good paper, and then it was taken over by one of the Lebedevs. I forget. I think it's Alexander Lebedev, one of the Russian oligarchs, and he appointed George as the editor. And it became a really scurrilous paper then, because it could say nothing good about anything. And now George, whether he's going to, well, he can't surely become a full-time banker and maintain his editorship of the Standard. Wouldn't have thought so. But talk about opportunism. Boy, once you're on the gravy train, you don't intend to give it up easily, do you? Not in the least. So if Georgie Boy wants to sue me, he can. But if anything, anybody ever, well, there's him and Tony Blair. They understood the system extremely well. What's our objective? Not to help the country, not to steer it as go down to history as a great prime minister, or even in George Osborne's case, a great finance minister. Is no, 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 no. It's to line our pockets and to stuff as many notes into our trouser sleeve, as it were, as we possibly can during the time that we're involved in all this stuff. And it really is it not very typical of the way that some of the elite, if you want to put it that way, behave. They could care less about their fellow citizens. Of course, I mean, I can't ever see it happening here, but there were a few people in the 1900s in Moscow who came to a juddering halt, taking that view. They suddenly found the people that they'd been taking advantage of were the people that were in control and telling them what to do. And there are books that really break one's heart. Is good middle class people who are living in a very nice apartment in Moscow suddenly found themselves in one room shared, and that what they were doing is they were making soap to survive. That's the sort of drastic change that took place. No, we're not going to see that sort of drastic change, not for one moment. What we are going to see, though, I think, is we're going to see reform, because this simply can't go on. There are people that have been hurt badly. I mean, my view is that the government, perhaps rightly, it's looked after the workers so that they don't actually kick too hard. We're giving you money and so on. But a lot of the future leaders, a lot of the people that make the economy tick, because you need entrepreneurs, you need thinkers, you need creative people to make an economy tick. A different sort of shock doesn't happen just because somebody decides to open the doors. It comes because of thinkers, of creators, of people who have got some sense of the extraordinary and are willing to back their judgment. Those are the people that have been hurt, badly hurt, and they're not going to forgive the people at the top who have been expedient. Certainly not overly concerned with those people that have got hurt and that are leaving in their wake. And there are lots of sad stories. And their first stories on social media. 6 months ago, I was wealthy, or at least I was well off. I got my own business. It was flourishing. Everything in the park was lovely and green. Now it is not. and I'm weighed down by debt. I've got no help from the government. I don't know where to turn to next. It's a sad, sad story, but it's replicated right throughout the country. So that's it for this morning. It's 2 minutes now. 2 minutes to 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Sorry. So let's just take a look at those things that we've talked about a little bit this morning. Yes, we've talked about the vaccine. And we've talked about getting back to and we had a nice little chat to Boris about Nicola. I hope that he's now finished eating his porridge. And if you're still listening in, Boris, don't send the porridge back to Nicola, but be careful. She's determined to rip Scotland out of your grasp. Until tomorrow, Keith Hayes, Mirador Television, shout it loud, seen in Sussex.